Capcom, a name that cannot stop bringing memories to my head about actual wonders incarnated in video game form: Resident Evil, Street Fighter, Devil May Cry, Monster Hunter, Ghosts and Goblins, and Mega Man. Mega Man is one of the most influential franchises in video game history. We can spot titles such as Gunstar Heroes on the Mega Drive, or the Metal Slug series on the Neo Geo, which, without any doubt, took Mega Man as their main inspiration. Its creator, Akira Kitamura, designed this series with an original progression, several levels which the player can finish in the order he or she may like, and then a sequence of levels until reaching the final boss, Dr. Wily. Fast, demanding, and with a heart-stopping soundtrack, this series has won the heart of millions of gamers since its first iteration back in 1987. Today, Ludo Pong presents Mega Levels, a series of videos in which we will analyze this franchise level design. This time, we will start by the third game, Mega Man 3, launched in 1990 for the Nintendo Entertainment System. It's important to underline that Keiji Inafune, famous for having collected almost $4 million for Mighty No. 9,
Wait, what?
defined Mega Man 3 as an unfinished product. The very first thing you'll notice when playing Mega Man 3 is that there are no cutscenes, nor text boxes, nor voices, nor super boring characters who tell us what to do and where to go. As soon as you start each level, it's crystal clear you have to go right. In this regard, Mega Man 3 is such a good example of how to communicate rules. For instance, we can see that the background and the forefront can be perfectly told apart. This can sound as something stupid, but there are more than a few modern games in which it is not always clear what you can or cannot interact with. On the other hand, its formula works pretty well when it comes to teach you new mechanics. We can take a look at how Needleman's level teaches you how to go down the ladder. It's obvious that you have to press down and you don't need any character to come and tell you, like it unfortunately happens in games of the last decade. Oh, get out! It also uses sometimes a resource which consists of locking you up until you understand what to do. For instance, in Hatman's level, in the second room, it seems you cannot continue. Nevertheless, once you open the ability menu, you can spot you have the rush recoil. Again, you don't need any character to tell you. Another quite interesting feature of Mega Man 3 is its atmosphere. For example, we can take a look at Topman's level, home to this spinning top villain. Inside, they place these enemies called Commissaires. It is a wonderful way of realizing Topman is literally a boss, and he has thugs at his disposal. But again, we don't need them to include a tediously long cutscene in which they explain us the ins and outs of a superior-subordinate relationship. Spockman's level is also pretty interesting. In order to make us know how this electrical villain is, they place just in front of our eyes these corridors with these blanking lights that, to be honest, almost gave me epilepsy the first time I played. In my opinion, Snakeman's level takes a bow. First, this level visual design simulates snakeskin. The so-called petite snakies, as well as the walls, are placed in order to look like we are before a big robotic snake tangle. All of these organic shapes, muddled and entwined, transport us to this reptile's nest. Come on, even the level itself is snake-shaped. Additionally, something this game achieves is the creation of cohesive spaces. For instance, in Magnet-Man's level, you start in a city with the sky at the background, yet in the next room you are underground. This is why in this level, it looks like Mega Man is going deeply into the uncharted. It's just a bunch of resources that make Mega Man 3 World have internal coherence, and furthermore, brings certain variety to the game and lets each levels feel unique. In fact, each level has its own melody, so it strengthens this idea. As a matter of fact, Gemini Man's level has a rather relaxed theme, similar to the one in Magnet Man's level. Other levels, such as Hardman's or Sparkman's, show much more intensity through their music, not to mention how melancholily optimistic its game over theme sounds. We can check that there is some diversity among levels according to the data. For instance, Gemini Man, Sparkman and Needleman's levels do not have mini-bosses, whereas Stoneman and Snakeman's levels have 2 mini-bosses each. The majority of these levels present 6 to 8 new enemies, with the exception of Gemini Man's level, 9 enemies, Dopman's level, 5 enemies, and Magnet Man's level, 4 enemies. Be that as it may, Shadow Man's level has no rewards at all, whereas Gemini Man's level has actually 9. This idea is especially interesting within Mega Man 3 design, since it introduces a new way of adding risk and tension. We have to keep in mind that having risk that is linked to a reward is a basic tool of every action game in order to amuse the player. For example, Super Mario Bros. Places green mushrooms, so you have to take a risk and get that extra life. On the other hand, you're vulnerable in Dark Souls when you attack. This is why Mega Man 3 works so well when introducing these optional rewards, as it provides variety and thrill, something absolutely essential for making such a fun level experience. It's also interesting taking a look to Shadow Man's level. It has just 2 risky areas, it does not include any reward, it does not teach any new mechanic, and it has no environment changes either. This way, right off the bat, it could seem that we're talking about a rather boring level, nothing further from the truth. This is why I decided to also include this view for each level in the analysis. Red areas mark tension areas, where the player has to pay attention if he or she wants not to lose lots of health points. Take a look to this level, almost everything is red. There is only a short parting ray in between. Nevertheless, let's compare it to Magnet Man's level, which has a bit more balanced figures. This level doesn't look that interesting now, since there are just a couple of areas in which we will really face a serious threat. And please look these appearing blocks. Here you've died thousands of times, and you know it. Toadman's level is probably one of the closest to perfection, as we can see here, both in content and in pace. This level is good enough and does not wobble as other levels do. On the other hand, it teaches us 4 new mechanics, which is rather interesting. At the very beginning, we face this gap which forces us to slide, a new ability in Mega Man 3, and go down the ladder. Furthermore, in Needleman's level, we can see how they introduce these needles in a safe space in order to make us familiar to this mechanic, and soon after, they increase the difficulty a bit. Snake Man's level presents the first Hammer Jaw in a safe space as well. In a way, we can attack him while suffering almost no damage. A very interesting moment happens at the very beginning of Snake Man's level. Here, as you can see, we suffer an ambush. This Dada and this Petit Snakey trap you from the right, so you would logically go to the left. However, you will get surprised since those enemies you have just killed respawn. It is quite a sharp way of telling you how the game works, and that hiding or backing off is useless since enemies respawn. This way, the game pushes you into going forward, which provides a lot of pace and dynamism. But unfortunately, life is not a bed of roses. In Sparkman's level, we have these rising platforms which are particularly hard, yet they do not introduce them in a safe space. This may cause a lot of frustration, since dying here is not exactly the player's fault, but rather the level designer's fault. This kind of malapraxis in level design happens especially in the last part of the game, Dr. Wily's Castle. In level 1, for instance, they introduce water for the first time. Like in other games, our movement is much clumsier and less predictable. The problem is that there is too little space for experimenting, and if you make a mistake, you automatically die because there are several spikes below. Level 3, however, is indeed the worst designed one. Here, that unfinished product statement reverberates like metal. Let's take a look to room 4, which makes my life miserable. What the heck is that Hammer Jaw doing up there? Okay, maybe there's a hidden reward or something. But no, you spend Rush Coil energy, he damages you a little bit, you kill him and nothing there. But a couple of rooms later, we face these moving platforms with all these spikes and it's incredibly easy. But design, since it's rather a boring walk, yet we are in the final stages of the game. As in the rest of the games in this series, in Mega Man 3 there is always a robot master at the end of the level who will give us a new ability after being defeated. This could be not that relevant, but the truth is that Mega Man's weapons can be more effective depending on the boss you are using them against. For instance, the Surge Snake cannot damage Hardman nor Sparkman, yet it deals 5 health points to Gemini Man. After several tries, the player may discover which weapons are dealing more damage to each boss. In other words, the player will discover which order is making the game easier. This title's quirk, however, is that the order can be separated in 2 cycles. This way, we can see Gemini Man, Needle Man, and Snake Man are part of a different cycle than the one of the other 5 Robot Masters. It is a way the design is used in order to avoid breaking the game too much if you already knew the weakness chart, which is something that actually happens in other titles in this series. In the 4 levels during the battle against the Dark Robots, there is still no fixed order. However, neither there is a good order. This time, there are 2 bosses. One at the mid-stage, and another one at the end. Neither of these will give you a new weapon, so the order the player chooses is rather irrelevant. And by the way, the 8 Dark Robots have the same sprite, which makes boss characterization go down the toilet. And that's a shame, since these emulate Mega Man 2 bosses' abilities, and so they could have taken advantage of that and give them some unique visual effects. Nonetheless, the Robot Masters do excel at characterization. Hardman has an enormous sprite and clunky moves, which makes you feel he's a tough guy. The same happens with Topman, who has an animation that emulates spinning top moves. Shadow Man has a leaning pose, as if he was in a martial arts fight, something that makes sense since he throws shurikens at you. As a consequence to this analysis, in broad strokes I have to say I am surprised. I wasn't expecting so many flaws in the game. Some moments are near absurd. I have already commented some of them, but I can mention even more. For example, in Sparkman's level there are several rooms in a row in which literally nothing happens. The battle against the Dark Robots has a fundamental mistake, and that is that there is no checkpoints before the boss. So if he kills you, you will have to start the level from the beginning. Something that drives me crazy too is the frame drops. Come on, if you require precise gameplay and demand to avoid damage, you cannot put so many elements on screen so the game slows down. In some moments, like in the battle against Airman's Dark Robot, it's slow as molasses, which makes it almost impossible. Shit! Oh, you fucking... It's pure tedium, man! However, I have to say that Mega Man 3 is still a very enjoyable game, and this is due to the fact that it excels at many things that actually work pretty well. It is difficult and demanding, but generally fares well, so it is not common that you get frustrated. In fact, it makes you feel satisfaction many times. Furthermore, it has an intense pace, you're not standing even for a minute, and that helps to make you really feel the challenge, faced with the mission of saving the world. I would also like to mention that this Protoman Touch is quite interesting. It is a character you face several times along the game. It's interesting because it adds a bit of complexity to the plot, since he is Mega Man's lost brother who is helping you during the story. Again, we do not need a soap opera in the shape of embarrassing cutscenes which tell us about all of the nanomachines involved in their dramas. It's enough with a couple of battles that entail a good challenge and a signature whistle. I hope you enjoyed the first video of Mega Levels. Ludo Pong is a recent channel and we have been working really hard on it. Take a look to other videos we have and don't forget to subscribe. By the way, I am leaving here our appreciation to authors and sources that made this video possible. And speaking of credits, I want to introduce you our Patreon website. Also, keep in mind that if you contribute through Patreon, you can get a more than 100 pages PDF about this video. Thank you very much. See you in the next video by Ludo Pong.